Hey, hello everyone, and good morning. We can start to enter into this space by finding our breath, finding the direct experience of breathing right now. And we can take that breath, that direct experience of breathing, to be something real, to be something important, to be something essential. As if we were experiencing something unknown, something unusual, something not understood. And all of the other sounds or thoughts, especially, that come up when we're cultivating, are to be ignored, to be disregarded, to be released and relaxed. Meaning that we don't take responsibility for that thought. We don't take responsibility for that sound. We don't take responsibility for that person, that place, that situation, that story. It's unusual, and maybe in the modern world and our modern work life and relationships, it doesn't necessarily make any sense to look at this experience of breathing to be something so important and essential. You could almost think of it as kind of zoning out or zoning in. But it's not based on our usual way of doing things, our usual way of focusing on stimulating ourselves, because the breath by itself, or just the experience that's happening right now, without the TV or the movie or the problem that we imagine in our lives. Maybe we're not stimulated, we're not triggered, we're not excited. Tuning into a kind of neutralness. The breath is a neutral, it's not unpleasant, hopefully. It's not usually pleasant. Just the neutralness of the breathing experience. Each and every millisecond, each and every particle of the breath. You can notice where the breath is, where you feel the breath, where you experience the breath. Is it in the nose? Is it on the lips? Is it a sound of breathing or a feeling of breathing in the stomach or in the chest? Going into breathing like this is very easy, very simple to not think. To stay with that breathing experience. Relaxing the face and the shoulders and the body. Putting down our usual coping mechanisms. Our eyes can be open, they can be closed. Just noticing where the eyes already are. Just noticing where the breathing already is. You may be able to notice a kind of totalness in the breathing experience, in the seeing experience, in the hearing experience, in the full body experience of just being, this totalness can seem maybe wrong in some way, that something should be lacking. That there should be something to think about, there should be something to do, there should be a correct judgment or a correct thought. But when we take refuge or rely on that direct breathing experience, it's so clear that there's no right thought. There's no necessity for thinking. There's no necessity for being someone. There's no necessity to sit in a particular way or to breathe in a particular way. So you can be flexible, you can relax about the way that you're sitting. You can relax about the way that you're breathing. You can relax about this way of being that's not tangled up in thoughts and not tangled up in seeking, not tangled up in figuring out, not tangled up in managing. So there can be a kind of dullness or spaced outness, or like a sleepy neutralness in this way of being. So it's important that we add to that this degree or this weight of awareness, of presence, of aliveness. So not enough just to be. Everybody's just being, regardless of what they're doing. They're just being. But we add this extra layer of recognizing or awareness of just being, the fullness of that, the total realness of that. And in recognizing that total realness, actually we take ourselves out of the picture. So if our eyes are open, if we notice this tendency or connection with seeing, seeing things, we can move that attention on the breathing to the seeing itself. We can shift from seeing things, that's what I relies on, the self relies on, seeing things, to just seeing. And this self has a kind of momentum or habit energy behind it. So this is why we call the Dharma swimming upstream, the path of practice swimming upstream. Turning the mind around to look at itself is not, it's inconvenient for the self. And the usual way of thinking about inconvenience for the self is, things going well or things not going well. But this is the inconvenience of not relying on things going well or things not going well. For the self, for this person, this you, this me, this I, this them, relies on somewhere, relies on something, just like thoughts, think thoughts about no things, or think thoughts about not thinking. So in the same way, this way of mind training is not convenient. It's not a self-help program. This true meditation, or this real meditation, or this detachment meditation is a practice that is inconvenient for the self. The self of thinking thoughts, the self of telling stories, the self of getting entangled in things. Now, when we run into the troubles or the inconvenience, too inconvenient in meditation, we go back to the breathing. We're working to extend and open out the awareness beyond anything, anyone, any thoughts. But if those thoughts seem to get entangled in things, in thoughts entangled in thoughts, we come back to a relaxing and releasing of the central nervous system. Come home to the body. Come home to the simple practice, the simple way of breathing. Actually, what we're doing in this real meditation is an active process of renunciation, of renouncing affiliation with things, mental things and physical things. And in being willing to come back to the present sensations of breathing, we're kind of exercising a willingness to unaffiliate from the sensations of breathing that have come up to this point. And what is unnoticeable by the self or ungraspable by thought is anything, but especially nothing. Because we can seem to grasp things with thoughts. We can seem to grasp our lives with thoughts. But we can't seem to grasp nothing with thoughts. And that's actually the only thing that thoughts can grasp, is absolutely nothing. That's a joke. That's not the way that it is, right? And the degree of subtlety, intimacy, and could call it complexity in terms of all the different things that we're working with here as we go deeper into meditation, deeper into freedom, deeper into untangling the mind of grasping, ignorance, and attachment. There's no social dynamics at play. There's nothing to be thought about, conceptualized about, in terms of people, places, situations, ideas, beliefs. Just to renounce now for you. This is at the same time the most unselfish and the most selfish path possible. To detach from what you have known or thought about or experienced up to now is to free yourself from false thought. Now, one of the arts that we can practice, that we can emphasize as we're getting into the meditation lifestyle, meditation way, especially if we start to become more curious about Dharma teachers, Dharma talks, Dharma communities, is a certain way of holding our body. The body is not as important as the mind, but as much as you want to work with the mind, you're going to have to work with the body. So in these environments and these situations, one of the ways we can bring a sense of aliveness and brightness to the mind is our physical posture, the physical posture that our body sits in. And I like to give some examples, some guidance about that. So the basic premise, the basic idea is to cross your legs and sit upright. This will be made a lot more convenient with a cushion. So I'm sitting on a couch here, pretty good, suitable, comfy couch. But I can actually sit my butt, kind of the backside of my butt, onto a cushion, and then I can cross my legs. Then my pelvis, the pelvis can either be turned kind of forward, the back's kind of up, or it can be slouched in. So having the pelvis, the cushion can help turn the pelvis forward. And if we can find a comfortable, stable position to sit in, like this, it's highly recommended. Now I listened to a little bit of Dharma recently on the YouTube, some teachers, one master, Ajahn Panasano, or Ajahn Pasano, and also Master Young Hua. And something they said recently stood out, and it was a matter of success in meditation depending on you not creating more problems for yourself. This is some of the best advice that I have to offer. If you can notice the thing that causes problems for yourself, that's where your practice is. When the buildup of habit energy comes around, where you go back into a certain habit pattern or a certain place of energy in the body or place of energy in the mind, it's at that exact moment we have to learn how to not act. That's where our success is going to come from in our meditation. The problem, the fundamental problem for all of us is that we have so much access to sensual involvement through our smartphones, through our foods, through all these different elements. And that means that we don't create the context for that underlying habit energy to show up and then to not be involved with that. Because we'll just keep distracting ourselves, and that maybe an energy from a trauma, maybe that energy from an addiction, an energy from a broken heart, it will keep bubbling, keep thriving, keep feeding off of all these different coping mechanisms that we develop, but they're actually coming from a particular place. They're coming from a particular energy center that we can't understand. And really, it's just the energy center of this ball of grasping and attachment, ignorance and attachment, seeking and aversion, that doesn't allow us to be enlightened or to be enlightened to our humanity. And that's what this is really all about, becoming enlightened to our humanity, not becoming something that's inhuman. And to become more human means to become more vulnerable. And at those times of vulnerability, not to follow along with those coping mechanisms. But it has to come from a deep place. Those moments have to happen when you've reached out beyond the bounds that have been set by that habit energy up to now, where your identity has become structured. I've been through this process many times, many times. When we practice the Dharma seriously, when we practice meditation informed by wisdom, concerned with the Sangha, the community of serious development, it will actually show us where our cracks are. It will show us what that subtle energy, that subtle tendency that's right at the core of our ego, the core of our self, that's draining, that's absorbing all of this appreciation of ordinariness, all of this humanness. It's like this, there's a black hole inside of us, this original wound, or this unknowable wound that absorbs our humanity. And we can't get to that wound unless we dig. and there's a particular direction that we need to dig in. We could dig forever trying to do our own meditation or whatever we're doing, but we wouldn't get closer to the point. So this is this way of digging that's concerned with the Sangha, that's concerned with a community of awareness, that's concerned with the meditation masters, the great meditation masters, of which I certainly don't consider myself to be at that level, but I hope to be on the path to get there. I hope other people feel that way as well. So today we're going to be listening to some guided teachings from Master Longchenpa, who is the Dzogchen yogi, Dzogchen master in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition. Read by a dear friend of the show, dear friend of the soul, the self here, Samaneri Jayasari. But before we begin with that, I'd like to invite anyone to share any comment or ask any question. And if not, to prepare, to get ready, to sit and to listen and practice together. Night did not become day, and day did not become night. So I had no choice but to leave the monastery. We can talk about it. I'm getting a little bit lost in enjoying my morning coffee here. And this is the special treat that we offer here at the Monk Life Meditation Institute, this is what it takes to have shifts, developments, etc. It's not specific to a particular teacher or a particular school or a particular schedule, but it is consistent with a continuous concern with the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. Hour after hour after hour after hour after hour. There's no way to get around that. I used to be a bad monk. Now I'm a bad meditation teacher. This is, in fact, the medicine that cures all wounds. But it's a self-produced or self-existent medicine. And you have to put in the research, the time, and the effort to cultivate that medicine, to cultivate that technology, to cultivate the capacity to not just meditate seriously, but also listen to Dharma talks seriously, to get out of the binge-watching TV show world, to get out of the TikTok spirituality world, or so-called spiritual materialism or superficial spirituality, to enter into this dominion of divine presence that is not based in thoughts. It's not important that anyone has anything to say here. It's important that you are willing to show up here and give. Give your time, give your energy, give your attention, and listen. So let's begin that process of listening together.
The Decisive Experience by Longchenpa-Guidance. Given that all phenomena of samsara and nirvana fundamentally arise within the scope of awareness, the unique sphere of being, there is a reversal of the usual way in which interdependent factors cause a universe of appearances and possibilities to occur in all its variety. That is to say, you trace them back to the place from where they originally came, and so get to the heart of awareness. Once you have realized that samsara and nirvana are miraculous expressions of awareness, there is no hope of attaining some higher state of Buddhahood. For you have decided that no Buddhahood exists aside from what arises due to awareness itself. There is no fear of falling into samsara, for you have decided that fundamentally appearances are nothing other than the perceptions of unconfused awareness. By realizing that awareness itself, like space, cannot be identified, you come to the decisive experience of supremely spacious, spontaneous presence as a great state of timeless freedom beyond labels. You are brought to the point where samsara and nirvana resolve, which is to arrive at the enlightened intent of Samantabhadra. Samantabhadra, mirror of enlightened mind, states, the infinite expanse of enlightenment is unobscured and totally pure. Since Buddhahood does not exist. There is not even the label Buddha. Since reification does not exist, there is not even the label ordinary being. Since conceptualization does not exist, there is no confusion due to non-recognition. Since fixation does not exist, there are no concepts or objects. Since attachment does not exist, there are no habitual patterns of ordinary mind. Since the past does not exist, there is not even the label future. Since the present does not exist, there is not even the label afflictive emotion. Since the teachings do not exist, there is not even the label teacher. This yoga, the spacious realization of the single sphere of being, is one of abiding definitively and without change on a level from which there is no regression, is spontaneously present and without change in a state of supreme bliss, and is the unobscured, clearly evident fruition in the non-conceptual state. You come to the decisive experience of confusion as a supreme state beyond labels. Consider the fact that while dreams do not stray from the context of sleep, sleep does not stray from the context of awareness. And awareness, in turn, does not stray from the context of the basic space of phenomena. If you analyze and examine this, you will see that no one has ever experienced falling into samsara. Samsara itself is already and forever pure, for it is by nature clearly apparent without truly existing. The very essence of what a dream is, manifest, yet without an independent nature. These expressions of emptiness are furthermore pure in Dharmakaya, which is without underlying basis or foundation. So the causes of confusion, confusion itself, perceptions based on confusion, and the one experiencing confusion have never known existence. One has not been confused in the past, does not experience confusion in the present, and cannot possibly be confused in the future, because there is already and forever a total purity as the very essence of space, which is without underlying basis. The great Garuda states, there is no name for, let alone the possibility of, confusion or non-recognition for anyone. Therefore, since nothing has ever been freed. Freeing later on is a fallacy. And the Pearl Garland states, the unconfused ground that abides thus is self-knowing awareness, so utterly lucid. The three kayas are timelessly perfect without being created. The fruition abides naturally and timelessly. Phenomena never affect it. Philosophical tenets are timelessly beyond being maintained. There is never any sullying due to the 5 poisons. Where then is samsara? Where is confusion? You come to the decisive experience of the non-duality of samsara and nirvana. That is to say, given that self-knowing awareness is timelessly empty and pure like space, samsara is pure in that bondage does not exist. And nirvana is totally pure in that freedom does not exist. since self-knowing awareness is beyond the extremes of existence and non-existence, you come to a decision that it entails no effort or achievement, no hope or fear. The Tantra without letters states, the ultimate essence, awareness itself, is not created. How could there be a creator? It is not contrived, since there is no one to contrive it. It is not samsara or nirvana, not bondage or freedom, not a specific point of view, but free of any point from which to view. It is not ordinary seeing, but a totally pure way of seeing. You come to the decisive experience of freedom from limitation as a supremely spacious expanse. You should understand that, in essence, awareness is not subject to restrictions or extremes, involves no time frame, no renunciation or antidotes, no plans or actions, no coming or going, no view, meditation, conduct, or fruition. No question of what is or is not, and no effort or achievement. It transcends the effort and achievement involved in the 10 attributes. It is a supremely spacious expanse, free of limitation and all pervasive. Yet it has never existed as anything whatsoever. The all-creating monarch states, "My nature shows itself to be authentic. Because I transcend the entire range of finite experience, there is no view to cultivate in meditation. Similarly, the 10 attributes do not ultimately exist, so do not think that they do. Since I am not an object to be seen by looking, do not try to look. Rest in suchness itself." Since there is no causal factor separating one from the unborn state, free of elaboration, there is no need to observe vows or spiritual disciplines, because the heart essence is timelessly and spontaneously present. There is no need for effort or achievement. Because naturally occurring, timeless awareness is unobscured. This awareness, this timeless awareness, cannot be made more lucid. Because everything abides on my level. There are no levels of realization to train on or traverse. Because I abide all pervasively, there is no path that leads to me. Because I am timelessly free of dualistic perception, there is nothing that could even be labelled subtle. Because my form is all-pervasive, duality has never existed. Since I have always been naturally occurring timeless awareness, there is no definitive conclusion about me for others to reach. Since I am the very heart of everyone's enlightenment, there is no secret source of pith instructions elsewhere. Because I am beyond all misinterpretation, I have decisively experienced all phenomena. Since there is no object, only me, I have also decisively experienced that there is no view to cultivate in meditation. Because there is nothing to uphold, only me, I have also decisively experienced that there is no samaya to uphold. Because there is nothing to seek, only me, I have also decisively experienced that there is no enlightened activity to seek. Because there is nowhere to abide, only me, I have also decisively experienced that there are no levels of realization on which to train. Because obscurations are timelessly absent in me, I have also decisively experienced that I am naturally occurring timeless awareness. Because I am unborn, the true nature of phenomena, I have also decisively experienced that I am that subtle nature. Because there is nowhere to journey, only me, I have also decisively experienced that there are no paths to traverse. Because Buddhas, ordinary beings, and the universe of appearances and possibilities all occur due to me. Enlightenment, the heart essence. I have also decisively experienced timeless non-duality. Because I epitomize naturally occurring timeless awareness, I have also decisively experienced that I am the supreme lightning transmission. Because all phenomena are none other than me. I, the all-creating one, am the decisive experience of everything. Now, since your realization is as vast as space, you come to the decisive experience of a supreme state in which nothing need be done about phenomena. In doing so, with the fundamentally unconditioned quality of this state becoming fully evident, you come to the decisive experience of a supreme state beyond ordinary consciousness, in which phenomena resolve. The essence of awareness is this exposed state, bare and without any underlying basis, in which phenomena resolve. The Pearl Garland states, since one has already arrived without taking a step, the very path to follow has already been traversed. Since there is nothing to describe with the spoken word, the realm of expression and imagination is forever transcended. Since the proliferation and resolution of thoughts are timelessly empty, there is a timeless abiding in supreme meditative stability. Since distortions are naturally pure, there is abiding in a supremely unobstructed, undistorted state. With realization that goes beyond the ordinary mind of hope and fear, you come to the decisive experience of a contented mind that is supremely and profoundly spacious. since there is nothing to plan or to do concerning awareness in the immediate moment. There is only this bare state in all its nakedness, in which nothing need be done, and which can in no way be affected by phenomena. The natural freedom of awareness states, in essence, true awareness is not awareness that entails plans or actions. Reification is the very cause of going astray. So the path does not entail refuting or proving anything. Awareness is not in any way dependent. It does not perceive in terms of restrictions or extremes.
So you may be able to experience or see in the meditation very pain, but also not pain. Yourself very real, your life very real, but also not real. And this experience of pain, it can be very simplifying, but it has to be concerned with the wisdom, the accessible wisdom, the intimate wisdom, not just the, what we can say, the commercial wisdom. We need relationships with teachers, with people who are seriously on the path. So how is that? Anyone have the question, or you can share your meditation experience? Pretty good for me. Not as successful as I'd like it to be, but that's also a trap. It's the same trap. Trap of no trap, etc., etc. Words and phrases, words and phrases. That's why, even though this age, this time is really difficult, because there's so many distractions, so much access to powerful tools for sensuality. But we also have this incredible access through the internet of being able to support each other and to be able to be supported. I was just listening to a talk yesterday where my teacher was talking about how he's opening up a new meditation center, and he doesn't have to physically be there in person because of the online. So he can open up the new meditation center online. He was saying he has now maybe more than 140 meditation centers around the world. you have to watch out for this toxicity, this tendency towards toxicity, towards negativity, towards aggression, towards nastiness, towards evil, because you are creating your own mind. You are creating your own life. The way that you act towards others, you're just acting in a mirror towards yourself. Truly, really, you are. That's the way that it works. If you want to build up negativity in your life, you can do that. But listen, you weren't raised right. Many young people, they weren't raised at all. You didn't have mentors. You didn't have people talk to you. You didn't have examples that were set. And so you had to pick up examples in whatever you came across. Pick up examples from other people who never had any examples set for them. What is an example? Being a good person, living a good life, taking care, giving, taking responsibility for your own mind, for your mental actions, for your physical actions, for your verbal actions. So you have to watch, you have to be vigilant over your mind, because you are creating your life. And the mental actions and the physical actions and the verbal actions is not something to take lightly. If you can sit, meditation is just a practice of non-action, not doing anything, being with your mind. And I mean, what kind of human beings are we if we don't even know what it means to just sit and be with ourselves, if the last thing that we'd ever want to do on the planet Earth is to just be with ourselves? And we have to accept that that is the situation that we're in, especially if you want to have children at one point in your life, if you want to have any kind of social responsibility at some point in your life. But you don't have to debate about it or discuss about it. It's just common speak. It's common sense for yourself. It's not for you. It's not for you to leverage a social position or to get other people to agree with you. It's you. It's what your children are going to have to deal with. It's what the people that rely on you are going to have to deal with. And most importantly, it's what you yourself are going to have to deal with. This is your life. And you can try to distract yourself. You can try to distract yourself or think about things endlessly, but all those thoughts and all the things that you think about, just return to this direct experience, like waking up from a dream of your own bullshit or the bullshit of the world, whatever you want to make it to seem like. You want to write some kind of script about yourself and life, and that's why you want other people to agree with you so much, because of this very deep attachment to thoughts. Not just your thoughts, but other people's thoughts. And remember, we have to stop pretending to be in control of our dream. We have to stop pretending to be in control of other people or to be in control of the environment. We're not. You are not in control. And the reason that we are always trying to get other people to agree with us or pretend that people agree with us, and then people just say, sure, I agree because you think that I agree, is because we're dying, we're striving for this sense of being complete or being right. But what's right about your experience right now if it's not based in thoughts? And we don't go deep into the mind. We don't think about things deeply. We just think about things on a surface level. Why? Because we've never had mentors, because we've never even had a conversation with anyone that's a quote-unquote deep thinker who's not trying to sell us some BS or trying to create some social position for themselves, some kind of competition. But there's not much place for real competition when there's not scarcity. Plenty of water, plenty of food, plenty of resources to go around. And that's when you can think deeply. That's when you can look deeply into your own mind, your own experience. But you can't just do that with your own thoughts. Just like a child can't figure out the world using what they have on their plate. They have to be provided nutritious food. They have to be provided insights and supports to look deeply, to question. That's the other thing. To question deeply. Because GTA 6 coming out is not a replacement for your experience right now. That's why we're always talking about black people and judging other people, and that's why we love watching these movies and TV shows. I think that if you look at it closely, right, why are we so convinced? Why are we so convinced by a movie or a TV show when it is the fakest thing that we've ever seen in our lives? When we know that movie, that TV show is not real, is not authentic. And we don't want to look deeply, right? Because we're scared. We aren't willing to be vulnerable. We aren't willing to face our vulnerability. We aren't willing to face our lack of power to control everything. It's like talking to someone while you're working on a car that either isn't interested in working on the car or doesn't actually even know how to work on a car. It's never going to lead anywhere or go anywhere. And so if we can't jump over this surface level interpretation of what someone says and just believing in it because they seem to believe in it, we're never going to get to the bottom of who we actually are and what we actually want. And we're just going to be led around in circles by entertainment, by distractions, and by what seems to be true. That's why everybody is so easy to be scammed and easy to be manipulated. That's why, what's this idea? Aren't American white men and women supposed to be the smart ones, and Indian people are supposed to be the underintelligent ones? So why are they making billions of dollars a year by just calling people up and scamming them? How does that work? But like I was saying at the beginning of this stream, it's a very personal practice. It's facing and embracing death, the reality of death. And nobody can go through that process of dying with you. Someone can maybe facilitate or support you to go through that process in yourself, through yourself, with yourself. But no one can go through death with you, just like no one can dream your dreams. No one can be in your dream with you. It's completely impossible. So this is the exact problem. The continuous perpetuation of believing in thoughts and believing in appearances. That's never ending, seemingly. And that wish to escape is the same problem. just creating more space for an identity, for a story, for you to be real, for you to be in your own life and situation and experience. And this is at the core of real spirituality, to break through that duality of someone who's observing, of someone who can think. This is all just raw immediacy. Totally. So to stop trying to create or to figure out or to solve this identity and to enter into that sacrum of being. But very few people are willing to do that, especially in our modern times. Willing to actually have these challenging conversations and to have our notion of self challenged, even our notion of things challenged. So it's a real blessing that we have that opportunity here. Coming back again and again to this refresh and restart pointlessness, directionlessness, non-striving, non-seeking, the non-existence of story, the non-practicality of story, indirect experiencing. Yes, do we have any question? There is no you. There is no self. There's no need to believe in that. So we force our beliefs onto other people, and we don't have a very full spectrum of beliefs that are on the table in terms of human experience, because we're undereducated, underexperienced, selfish society that doesn't value children, that doesn't value education, but rather values labor and a kind of mental and physical slavery. We don't know how to listen. We don't know how to have conversations that go deeper rather than become more and more shallow. We're kind of programmed to be in that way. And we don't allow people with disabilities or children to self-direct. Only people who are allowed to self-direct are male characters in movies. Heroes, warriors, wealthy people, etc. We're not allowed to build community. We're not allowed to share resources with each other. We have to find something to put our signature on and take out a loan and pay it back forever. It's a kind of conditioning. So this non-allowance is what? Oh, yes, I will answer as I see fit. Don't be ridiculous. I'm not your slave. This kind of non-allowance is a conditioning. what is allowed by the conditioning, what is on the table, what is optional. The we of nobody. Everyone being just awareness. Well, the conditioning that's currently presented is not one that facilitates community building that's not superficial, such as sharing resources with one another, cooperating, communicating, offering protection, only on a very superficial level. The only community that we're allowed to build through the modern conditioning as Americans or Westerners, Australians, etc., is to find a sex partner and then to have a child. So that you're allowed to do. The conditioning. Well, I've been in Australia. I've lived in Australia. And what I can tell you in Australia is that the white men and women of Australia have stolen that land. They've stolen that land, and I've been into the bush, I've been in Perth, I've been in Sydney, I've been in Melbourne, I've been all over Australia. And what I can say is that the white men and women of Australia have to take responsibility and repent for the stolen land, for the stolen society, for the genocide of those communities. But this is, of course, the same process and practice of conditioning. This is, of course, the same process and practice of the conditioning that does not allow a self to not exist, because that's not a Western value. That's not a capitalist value. So this is the essential principle and practice of taking refuge in the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. Because you can't just go around challenging the notion of self. This conditioning is not owned by anyone. It's more like a weather pattern. So as much as you dare to challenge that conditioning within yourself, you will have to learn how to embrace the wind and how to embrace the dynamics of direct experiencing. And the CIA, the callous internal agent, will get a hold of you. if you don't have that support, if you don't have that refuge, if you don't have that guidance, if you're not willing to have these kinds of conversations where the notion of a self is challenged. But if you ask me, there should be a mass repatriation of land for Aboriginal people and communities in Australia.
That these were disagreeing with, or
Well,
you're conveying?
this point in the challenging issue is to bring up a position of non-self,
Yep.
to bring up a notion of non-self, and then the practicality of that notion for those who are truly willing to listen or explore that notion with their bodies and minds. And when
And what was they mainly disagreeing with, or what was the main point that
Well, who
kind
can
of ruffled
say?
their feathers?
Who can say what other people were doing or why it was like that? But it's a revolutionary action to posit the notion of non-self, especially in our modern day and age, in our modern environment. And
Yeah, I don't
will
disagree with you at all.
people will bring up whatever they can to justify a reasoning where that is not allowed to be talked about, where that's not relevant to talk about.
Yeah.
And it's not really about doing anything meaningful besides making sure that this notion of non-self is not allowable, so as to not go deeper into it.
I completely understand the main idea you're saying about non-duality, and it's a universal law to a certain degree. I just see the case of he, who, not I is not relevant in this. I get it that these people conversating, they may have specific points, but what I always understand in these types of scenarios is, at the end of the day, there is a frequency out there where a level of wisdom can get through to any being. Now, yes, it may seem that not everyone can agree. It's not about that. When you speak about such high level wisdom, understandments that you're speaking about, which aren't third dimensional thoughts, they're very more developed. I believe that they have to be broken down in such simplified forms that any human can understand them, whether it's three people arguing over each other in a Discord to seeing a group of people in the street. And the best reference I can always use, if you look at people like monks where they get interviewed and straight away they get asked the biggest questions like, what's the meaning of life? The first references they always use is environmental things such as stone, water, rocks, not eight-lettered words, you know what I mean? So it's a case of like, I completely understand your points, and I'm not saying I disagree with them, but I guess that set things can be overcome of arguments or discussions if the wisdom is at a correct level. Do you know what I mean? Like, I always believe that I'm always seeing myself as room and improvement of how can I explain universal concepts to any type of human that I ever come across. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's, to me, it's something I always aim to get to. And it's interesting to come into points like this where they're over talking, they can't control their emotion in such simple conversations and whatnot. And it's just, well, what can be improved, if anything? Because at the end of the day, this information we know in this current cycle has been buried, forgotten, blah, blah, whatever we want to call it. It's becoming re-remembered. And it's a case of how are we supposed to explain this to any type of human, and they will always understand. Do you know what I mean?
Well, it's ableist, it's childist, it's speciesist, it's environmentalist, and especially it's thingist. So how about people with disabilities, not frustrated Australian women? And so what's really being brought up here? This is a principle of thinglessness and no beings to begin with. There are no beings to teach the Dharma to. There's no being who can teach the Dharma to other beings. And that's the invitation.
Yeah. Yeah. But for instance, even that, as you've just summed that up there, it's very, I completely understand the words coming from you. But if I was to sum that up in a couple seconds to somebody who can't iterate that, I'd say that, classic example, we are the sun and we're all individual rays. Do you know what I mean? When I try and explain thoughts of non-dualism to people, that there is no sense of I, it's very hard to, yes, some people might not have the IQ, but it's very hard for me to go into them points when I'm using words such as non-dualistic, or I lose set people at a set point. Do you know what I mean? I'm not saying that you need to always lower down your set level, but I feel like there are words that we can adapt that everybody can resonate with. Do you know what I mean?
Even children?
Blob.
Or people with
Yes, I think
disabilities, or
children, if
animals, or
anything,
trees? Can we convey
I
non-duality
think
to a tree?
I think
You are a
children
tree.
even are easier to do because they've come straight from source, and most 8-year-olds
Okay.
to 6-year-olds, people's kids I speak to, they're a lot more open-minded. You know what I
Sure,
mean?
I
Probably
agree.
even resonate with them more than they think. You know what I mean?
Okay, go ahead. Morally ambiguous.
Dubious.
Yeah?
So what do you say?
Dubious.
Go
It's
ahead.
morally dubious.
Okay, great. Whatever it is.
No, it's dubious.
I don't care what it is. What do you want to say?
Nothing.
Just a word.
I'm just talking to you.
Okay. Goodbye.
Hello.
Started a mantra. Don't want anything. Don't want anything. Don't want anything. Anything while meditating. Want to move, want to drink, want to eat, want to check the phone. Yeah, but this is creating restrictions as well. So you'll be blocking yourself from not being blocked by blocking. So you don't want to do that either. Maybe as a training or a practice or an exploration. So that was one of the last things that was from this Longchenpa text, was about, well, let's see. Restrictions and
Going
extremes.
astray. So the path does not entail refuting or proving anything. Awareness is not in any way dependent. It does not perceive in terms of restrictions or extremes.
Yeah, there we go. It does not perceive in terms of restrictions or extremes. It's not limited or curtailed or dependent upon anything, let alone our contrived meditation practices that are the, the throne of our wholesome desire. So it's great, it's good, wholesome desire, better than unwholesome desire, we would say, right? Unless the Buddha himself or herself or themselves shows up at your house and wants to go on a walk with you, then there's no need for sectarianism, except out of practical applications, such as you eat at the McDonald's that you're at the drive-thru at, but you don't have any allegiance to that McDonald's. It's just not necessary. You're in the 10-day Vipassana retreat, so okay, you're not listening to this or that talk from this or that teacher. But other than that, it's just not necessary. These are all people on the path, or were on the path like we are. So even in your own practice, fixating on some particular kind of mantra or definition of success, that's just another youism that is a problem indefinitely. So we have here, the Buddha is a person who has nothing to seek. If there is seeking, then one is contradicting the principle. So seeking for not wanting anything. Come on, Shelley. The Buddha is a person who has nothing to seek. If there is seeking, then one is contradicting the principle. The principle is the principle of non-seeking. If one seeks it, one misses it. If one attaches to non-seeking, then that becomes the same as seeking. If one attaches to the unconditioned, then it becomes the conditioned again. That is why the sutra says, not grasping at Dhamma, not grasping at no Dhamma. That's a phenomena, that's lowercase d, so maybe meaning phenomena here. Not grasping at Dhamma, not grasping at no Dhamma, and not grasping at not no Dhamma. It also says the Dharma attained by the Tathagata, the fully enlightened one, is neither real nor false. So this is one of the interesting aspects of the sandpaper that we used this morning. Is it's a cutting away of the cutting itself. You know, gets to Wat Ram Bodhi Dham, Luang Por's teachings at Wat Ram Bodhi Dham, which is, I think, probably very beautiful and eloquent in Thai, but when that's translated to English, it's quite a coarse sandpaper. But I can hear that in the meditation. You know, it's not that no thoughts exist. There's no such thing as no thoughts exist. It's not that there's no self. There's no such thing as no self. And that's very real. You know, it's not that there's no body, it's that there's no such thing as a body, let alone no body. And then we maybe use these terms practically, but we are too much caught up in teaching and telling other people the way that it is, you know what I mean? And that's a kind of complacency and an attachment to rites and rituals relating to current conditions, which is a major problem. And then you hear the teacher, you heard Longchenpa saying, you know, for example, or I'll say this, you know, there's no such thing as a self. So be careful with yourself. And you can do that in very subtle and skillful ways, you know, because that goes to Hippocrates. Who said Hippocrates is this big swinging dick? I didn't say I believe in Hippocrates. I don't care who he was or who else agrees with him and likes him. You know what I mean? Good. We listened to Master Yonghua. Master Yonghua's master. Master Sinhua, is it? Founder of City of 10,000 Buddhas, who says, the more that you don't understand it, the more that I didn't say anything at all. What a joy that is. The more that you understand or grasp the Dharma, the less Dharma there is. for you to enjoy, the less wonderful it is. You don't understand anything I'm saying, then that's great. This is not said for the sake of you understanding or being understood. What does it mean, being understood? I understand. What does that mean? Just a bunch of nonsense. That's right, Longchenpa, that's right. Namo Guru Longchenpa. If one could only for a lifetime keep a mind that is like a wood or stone, without being moved by the aggregates, the realms of sense, the entrances, the 5 desires, and the 8 winds, then one cuts off the cause of birth and death and is free to go or stay. One is not bound by any phenomenal causes and results, and is not hindered by any of the afflictions. At that time, because of oneself being free, one can help others by adapting to them and acting in beneficial ways. With an unattached mind, one responds to all things. With unobstructed wisdom, one unties all bonds. This is what has been called giving medicine according to illness. Now, my dear friends, I have bad news for you all. You've got a one-way ticket to death. So this is a transcendental training. There's no storybook. You know, Longchenpa was talking a lot about the timelessness, the timeless awareness, right? So all of your constructs about you developing are time-based. And that, you know, we kind of try to say, well, come on, let's be fair, let's be realistic, it's time for us to go to work or whatever. Well, that's good and fine, but it's exceedingly deceiving. Just like the movies and TV shows that we watch that are the epitome of fakeness, and yet somehow we get pulled into that and we get in a state of belief about that. So this is what if it's a master worth their salt, they're referring or coming from a timeless awareness, a non-conditional direct pointing of the mind, of the nature. Everybody says, come on, Dr. Rob. Don't you ever try to give me any kind of brain aneurysm. It's not up to me. Then we say, is the Buddha alive? Is your toilet flushed? Did you leave a clanker in there? Okay? So it's not a fair deal. It's not a good deal. Just like everything that we've been culturally conditioned to believe and understand is a bunch of nonsense compared to reality. That's why I like to be in the Vietnam or the country where the people don't speak my language, aren't from my culture, because I feel a little bit of leeway in not understanding. Clearly I don't understand what those people are saying. Whereas we get into these constructs where clearly we understand what's going on and who we are and what human beings are, according to who? According to Joe Rogan and some fat cat from 100 years ago that was drinking wine and practicing philosophy. It's a kind of, we have a mentality, so like Western people, right? Look at me and Travis here, Western men, right? We're come from a culture of genocide and slavery. I don't know why people don't, everybody says, well, now we've got Best Buy, so just give it a break. Don't you want a good TV? But that's what our culture was built on. We saw the Native Americans and, we genocided them. And we genocided their culture and their way of life and their teachings and their mind framework. Why do the Aboriginals and the Native Americans, why do they like alcohol so much? I don't know. Maybe if somebody came into your house and destroyed your entire family and tortured you and obliterated your way of life, you'd probably be sipping on the bottle too. And then you had to keep living in that house while, this hellfire was constantly burning everything that you had known and loved and had been empowered through over hundreds and thousands of years. So this slave owner mentality and this colonizing mentality, it goes into people's houses, it goes into people's lands, and it decides for them what they're doing. That's the American culture. That's our backdrop of American history. And we say, well, you can't say that's true. I mean, look at Microsoft. Well, look at the many Native American people on reservations and Aboriginal peoples in Australia, and their suffering and their addictions and their the negative continuation of that trauma. So we have a positive continuation of that trauma because we are the winners. It's not an illusion, nor is it not an illusion. That's just grasping onto it being an illusion or grasping onto it being not an illusion. If somebody left shit in your toilet, guess what? Unless you're a crazy person, you don't grab it out of there and open it up and explore it and see, where did this come from? Did this come from me? Did this come from someone else? You just flush it. So this is not a teaching on being fair with each other. This is a teaching on flushing the toilet, flushing the mind of self and past and time. And this is revolutionary action, and this is not allowable. Okay? This is not allowable. You're not allowed to take this as a position in your society or in your community or in your relationships. It's not a part of the culture. Whereas if you're a monk, you're living in Tibet or something like that, it is allowable to have that position as an ID, as an ego, as going into solitary retreat, etc. It's not allowable, let alone supported, for you to do that. So you have to take on the weather yourself. It is a transcendental situation, just like a knife is a transcendental situation, just like a bullet is a transcendental situation. There's no discussion. There's zero discussion. It's like having a discussion between an army with blades and an army with guns. The point of the blades and the guns is that there's not a discussion. And then these Dharma masters are the people who can turn trauma into freedom or turn weapons into flowers, actually. So that's why Manjushri, the archetype of wisdom, the bodhisattva of wisdom, is depicted in one hand holding a flower and in the other hand holding a sword, a great sword. Was the Buddha an incarnation of Vishnu? Was my fart an incarnation of the meal that I had yesterday? Of course it was. What else would it be? Go ahead, Blondie. Let's hear an update on your practice as of late. Let's hear what you've been practicing, your samaya and your sadhana, and how's that been going, Blondie? Go ahead.
Taking action to not be as scared. So listening to people, even though I can't understand them, then it helps me understand them.
You have to think about your meditation and the wisdom element and the great teaching element, the wisdom teaching, which we should be concerned with, whether we understand it or not. Not just listening to anybody, listening to the Dharma masters, listening to the well-known advisors as best as we can find them. And we find them by leveraging the relationships that we already have. Okay, if someone is your spiritual friend, you ask them what teachers they follow. If they don't have any answers, then that's not much of a spiritual friend, is it? They want to go on a monologue about their spiritual ideas. It's not correct. So this wisdom element is a transcendental element. And correct meditation, practicing meditation, should also be that way. That's why we can't just sit there and fight with pain unless that wisdom element is alive. And in these 10-day Vipassana retreats, you've got a commercial and a conditional teaching. Okay, I'm sure that what's his name is a lot better than me and a lot more wise and skillful than me, etc., etc. But we need a lived experience, a sensitive experience, intimate experience. Why did, the Buddha didn't write any books, did he? The Buddha didn't say, here, go and hand out this pamphlet. When the monks asked the Buddha, they said, all right, so what do you want us to tell people after you're gone? Buddha said, thus have I heard. So it's totally a transcendental teaching. And the practices that we get ourselves involved with are conditional. Just like the toilet paper that you wipe your ass with. You use it and you flush it. Or, you compost it, even better. But you don't just leave it around and then build an identity up about that, of that. The wisdom of the masters. So the fact of the matter is that it's just not worth it to prioritize one of the worldly winds, one side of the worldly winds, to prioritize profit, to prioritize fame, to prioritize praise, to prioritize status, because that prioritization is inclusive of its opposite. And as human beings, we are sure to get the other end of the pencil. It's a sword without a handle, actually, but we didn't realize that. Dr. Rob didn't realize that. Shiva Kailash Shambho didn't realize that. Travis didn't realize that. So our practice of meditation is a process of realizing. That's why the pain can be very helpful. Not because we're trying to charge up our merit bank. How do you really charge up your merit bank? You stop making problems for yourself. Instead of going to that consumption and that seeking, you relax into timeless awareness. now. And you get to a space and a practice where you don't care, but you're not callous. Don't care mean you're not attached to that outcome, to that presentation, to that appearance. And the problems that we make for ourselves is that an appearance shows up. We say, hey, I know that that's got something juicy on the other side of it. And then we waste all our energy, or we re-traumatize ourselves, or we trigger our selfing. We trigger our identitying. And instead of taking refuge in the Dharma and the path and in timeless awareness, we dig down as deeply as we can to take refuge in our fixation and our illusions. This is why it becomes realistic to become a monk or a nun, or to live at a meditation center, or to make a meditation center, because we see the value in conditions that promote this transcendental position, this transcendental perspective. If you're just living for yourself, or you're just following some schedule, or you're just trying to make your own environment for your own enjoyment, there's not going to be much access to anything transcendental. And your meditation and spiritual practice is just going to be a coping mechanism. And we won't be able to deconstruct ourselves enough to form these new kinds of relationship, these new kinds of community, these new kinds of identity. And before we even think about that, receiving someone else's identity that is not known, that is not understood, and stop being so colonial in our ways of being. I don't understand that, so it must be like this. That's ridiculous. And then, of course, what goes along with that is that it must be like this. By under threat. It must be like this under threat. And if it's not like this, your children, your women, your men, your very environment will suffer. We have to remember the founding fathers of America and the founding brigade of American culture was, hey, Jim Bob, I got $5. You sure would like that, wouldn't you? Go and get me some brown skulls. Go and kill animals indiscriminately so that the women and children of the forest cannot eat. And I'll give you $5. And anyways, it's for America, so just go and do it. You don't even need money. So deconstructing whiteness, deconstructing Americanness, deconstructing Englishness, Europeanness. But there has to be a heavy concern for wisdom, and you're not going to be interested in wisdom unless you're getting a fair dose of reality. So that's why we're so famous in America for covering up reality. Isn't that the American dream, covering up reality? Manifest Destiny, Hollywood. I wish they'd make some better movies. Until we know how vulnerable we are, there's no space to grow, there's no space to communicate, and we'll just continue perpetuating this attachment to rites and rituals. Ourselves personally, directly, maybe better than personally, directly. One day, as the master accompanied Matsu for a walk, they heard a cry of wild duck. Matsu asked, "What kind of sound is that?" The master replied, "It is a cry of wild duck." After a while, Matsu asked, "Where is the sound gone?" The master said, "Flown away." Matsu turned his head, grabbed the master's nose, and pulled it out. The master cried with pain. Matsu said, "And yet, you said it has flown away." On hearing that, the master had an insight. He returned to the attendant's cottage and started to cry. One of his fellow monks came in and asked him, "Are you thinking of your parents?" "No," replied the master. The monk asked, "Has anyone scolded you?" "No," replied the master again. The monk asked, "Then why are you crying?" The master said, "The great master pulled my nose and it is still hurting." The monk asked, "What kind of disagreement have you had?" The master said, "You can go and ask the venerable." The monk then went to Matsu and asked him, "What has happened so that attendant Hai is crying in the cottage?" He told me to ask you, the venerable. Matsu said, "He understands. Go and ask him." The monk returned to the cottage and said, "The venerable said that you understand. He told me to ask you." On hearing that, the master started to laugh. The monk asked him, "Just a while ago you were crying. Why are you laughing now?" The master said, "A while ago I was crying. Now I am laughing." The monk could not make anything out of it. The next day, as soon as Matsu entered the Dharma hall and seated himself, the master stepped forward and rolled up his bowing mat. Matsu then left his seat, and the master followed him to the abbot's quarters. Matsu asked, "Concerning what just happened, why did you roll up the bowing mat?" The master replied, "Because my nose hurts." Matsu asked, "Where did you go to?" The master said, "Yesterday there was going out and coming in. There is no need to pursue that." Matsu shouted, and the master left. There we go. Simple, plain as plain English, right? And that's what it's like. That's what the situation is like. Okay, that's why 150 people every day are committing suicide in the U.S. alone. Okay? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I love kitty cat.
One day, Matsu asked the master, "Where are you coming from?" The master replied, "From the other side of the mountain." Matsu asked, "Did you meet anyone?" The master said, "No, I didn't." Matsu asked, "Why didn't you meet anyone?" The master said, "If I did, I would have told the Venerable." Matsu asked, "Where did you get this news?" The master said, "It is my fault." Matsu said, "No, it is this old monk's fault." So what these interesting koans or interesting stories may be coming from is this impossibility of being someone, this impossibility of time. This impossibility of a situation. This impossibility of a person, a place.
The Decisive Experience, Part 3, by Longchenpa-Guidance. For yogins who have gained realization in total freedom, without any reference point. Conduct is unpredictable, and they experience sensory appearances in a naturally settled, ordinary state. With your conduct unpredictable, you make the final leap into awareness, without the slightest basis for determining what is spiritual or not. And so this bare state, with no reference point, is beyond the cage of philosophy. Whether eating, moving around, lying down, or sitting, day and night you rest in infinite evenness, so that you experience the true nature of phenomena as their equalness. There are no gods to worship, no demons to exorcise, nothing to cultivate in meditation. This is the completely ordinary state.
Hey, Jeff. What are you doing?
With this
Hugging
simple
the
state
tree.
of evenness,
Huh?
the uncontrived ruler that has no pride, there is oneness, a relaxed and unstructured openness. How delightful. Things are timelessly ensured without having to be done. And being free of effort and achievement, you are content. Regarding this, you might think, individuals involved in spiritual teachings and the spiritual path turn away from what is ordinary and spend their days and nights in various burdensome kinds of formal religious practice. So what is accomplished by abiding in an ordinary state? Is there no difference between worldly people and yogins? But you should understand the following. The former are just worldly people who have never trained their minds in spiritual ways. And because they do not think about this, they deprive themselves of spiritual intentions and actions. The latter enjoy the contentment that comes of realizing that spirituality is already and forever ensured without being made so. Because spirituality is already ensured for them, they have cast it away or transcended it. So there is nothing spiritual for them to do, and they perceive things in a naturally settled, ordinary state. In the same vein, you should understand that the minds of worldly people get caught up in the entanglements of the world. But this is not the case for yogins, who are thus not similar to ordinary worldly people. If they were similar, it would mean that just as ordinary people go through the cycle of samsara, so too are yogins in a state of confusion. But since for the latter, nothing need be done, physically, verbally, or mentally, there are no factors that contribute to confusion. And since they appear to be ordinary, having awakened into an unobstructed state, they are not subject to bondage. They are free of karma and its inevitable consequences. To give an example, when a hemp rope is burned in a fire, it still seems to be a rope, but it cannot perform its function of binding. Similarly, since their minds are unobstructed, yogins may seem to deny or affirm things with ordinary consciousness, and may appear to be concerned with food, clothing, and possessions. But they are not bound by these things, because they are not fixated on them, having realized they are dreamlike, without any basis. This is not the case for worldly people, however, and so their minds are bound by fixations that seem entirely legitimate, just as though the rope was not burned in the fire. There is bondage due to the usual denial or affirmation of the mind inwardly, or sensory appearances outwardly. It is for these reasons that one powerful lord of yogins said, "Whatever you fixate on, cast it aside. If you are to gain realization, that is everything. No one will ever gain understanding by any other means." He also gave the following advice. You are bound not by sensory appearances, but by fixation on them. So cut through fixation, Naropa. Wrong thinking concerning this ordinary state can be refuted. Those whose merit and good fortune are minimal, whose minds cannot face the implications of this realization and the enormity of these teachings, might object by saying, but in the context of realizing the way of abiding, it must be appropriate to carry out the spiritual activities that need to be done. Don't you accept the fact that happiness is gained as a result? My response to this is as follows. Be careful. You are making arbitrary distinctions between good and bad, even though all phenomena arise equally in light of awareness. With phenomena manifesting as if dreams, I do not reject some and accept others. For to engage in rejection and acceptance, effort and achievement, is contradictory for a yogin. It is said that a yogin of natural great perfection does not place hope in any goal, whereas those who place hope in effort and achievement, cause and effect, are not suitable candidates for this approach, and so apply themselves to the more commonplace teachings of lower spiritual approaches, intended for less mature people. The all-creating monarch states, to be unaware of this and to engage in effort and achievement conflicts with the ultimate meaning of transcending causality. And so one will not encounter the supreme bliss in which nothing need be done. Owing to the diseases of effort and achievement, awareness has already gone unrecognized. Therefore, great perfection beyond causality is not within the reach of those who lack good fortune, so they should avail themselves of teachings on causality. Those who have little good fortune may further say, it may be true that nothing need be done deliberately, since everything is equal in awareness, but it must still be necessary to do something, because accomplishment comes about from something being done, but does not if nothing is done. To them I say, if something is not so, trying will not make it so. While, if it is so, there is no need to try to make it so. Though effort and achievement pertain to a relative perspective, from the ultimate perspective of mind itself, nothing whatsoever need be done. And given that Dharmakaya is already ensured in mind itself, it becomes evident if you leave it as it is. But it is not ensured by your doing anything. Just as a reflection in limpid water will not be clear if the water is disturbed. The same Tantra states, Buddhahood does not happen by being made to happen. It is unsought and naturally indwelling, and so is spontaneously present. Rest non-conceptually in this effortless naturally abiding state. Therefore, just as effort and achievement are hindrances to enlightenment, and the need to rest is extolled, it is a great flaw to try to do anything about mind itself, about which nothing need be done. For doing so would mean there was some incongruity between cause and effect, between the ground and the path, and nothing would come of it. The all-creating monarch states, "There is no greater hindrance to enlightenment than being unaware of what is already ensured, beyond effort and achievement, and instead viewing it as being ensured by meditation, involving plans and actions, effort and achievement." Someone might object. This may indeed be the case, but something still needs to be done, for I have not yet reached that level. My answer is as follows. Alas, unfortunate one, this is not a case of going from one place to another. Since there is no going, there is nowhere to arrive. You are truly astonishing. Going to look for yourself when you already are yourself.
So we have some Zen teachings here, and if you're here in the Discord, please feel welcome to ask a question or share if you feel inspired to do so. Thank you for the $20 donation, Michael.
I found a pretty meaningful insight that doesn't make much sense. But between the ground and the path, was meaningful.
Venerable Yan Yang asked Joshu, when not a single thing is brought, then what? Joshu said, put it down. Yan Yang asked, if not a single thing is brought, what is to be put down? Joshu said, if you can't put it down, then carry it out. Master Huanglong Nan versified this. Not a single thing brought forth. Both shoulders cannot bear it. Had he realized his error at the words, in his heart would be limitless joy. Once poisonous viciousness is forgotten within, snakes and tigers become friends. For how many hundreds of years the clear breeze has not ceased. Master Dinghui Zin asked a monk, how do the skillful ones of the South evaluate the national teacher Zong's saying about inanimate objects expounding the Dharma? The monk said, everyone says it refers to the interchange of functions and the six senses. Xin said, in the teachings, it says there are no eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, mind. What is there to interchange functions? The monk tried to think of something to say. Zin hit him right across the back. Dharma Master Shang said, knock on space and it makes a sound. Knock on wood and there's no sound. Yunmen knocked at the air with his staff and said, ai, ai, ai. He also knocked on a board and said, does it make a sound? A monk said, it makes a sound. Yunmen said, you worldling. He knocked the board again and said, what do you call sound? Master Zhuangsha asked a monk, where did you come from? The monk said, from Ruyan. Zhuangsha asked, what sayings does Ruyan have? The monk said, he calls master all the time, then answers himself, yes? Be alert, and don't let anyone fool you anymore. Zhuangsha said, first class play with the spirit, but still only amounts to a little bit. So I hope that this little bit today has brought some value and peace, or maybe brought nothing at all, besides some realizing of awareness, nowhere to go, nothing to do, and the bliss, the true bliss of there being nothing to strive for, nothing to seek for. And I hope all of us can experience this unceasing breeze for hundreds and hundreds of years. Okay? Thank you all for being here. Be well and take care. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.